Hi everyone, welcome to this afternoon's Open Creative Space live stream. Here at Learn, we believe that making is what makes us human. We make, therefore we are. This session is for educators or even parents who want to get into making and STEAM activities with their students or their children, either online or in the classroom. You could follow us at ocs.learnquebec.ca, where we post ideas of activities and also links for both students and educators. So for today's session, we will be exploring light and shadow, and how we use this theme to make things, get creative, and teach different concepts. So light and shadow can be done indoors and outdoors, both using natural or man-made sources of light. So I'm here with my tinkering colleagues, Chris Colley and Craig Bullitt, who will be doing some demoing for us today and sharing some cool things to try out with your students or your children. So why? This is one of the questions we ask ourselves every week. So why are we so passionate about making here at Learn? It's actually for several reasons. So firstly, making is playful and inventive for all ages. This is true for grown-ups as well as for children. It allows us to see materials in different ways, and it gets our hands busy and at work and making. You'll see material-wise, we like to share ideas of materials that you have at home, especially recycled materials. The making process allows to experiment with the diversity of solutions. So in other words, there's not just one best way of doing something. It also allows for lots of creativity, collaboration, and engagement, especially in today's context in which we're looking for ways to engage our students in their learning, which is crucial. And last but not least, today's takeaway, I want you to focus on this tinkering and creating approach for discovering the world around us and for teaching concepts. So students learn best when they are actively engaging their senses and also their passions, and tinkering does just that. So today we will be looking at different concepts for exploring light and shadow, different concepts and vocabulary such as creating shadows by blocking the light, how to bounce light off reflective materials, and also how to bend light. Different vocabulary words we'll explore are transparent, translucent, opaque, and sizing, bigger, smaller, distorted. We'll also make some curricular connections throughout this live stream. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the mic to Chris, who's going to walk you through the different materials, the setup, and the different light sources that you can use.
There we are. Great. Thanks, Go. All right, so I'm going to flip over to my document camera so that you can see all the cool materials that I've brought to share with you guys. And again, like Kevin said, I mean, you use what you have, right? The point is that you're discovering and tinkering throughout the process. And we find that that's the best way that a lot of times we learn, is just through trying stuff out and experimenting. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the setup today. And you can see based on my document camera, so I have my floor space, but then I also have a back reflective page as well here. So I can really cast shadows on either something horizontal or vertical, no problem, and come up with some pretty cool results. So the first thing is that backdrop, having something like that set up. Usually white is the best. You can see we're in the day here, so it's not as dark as we'd want, but we'll do our best. So the back, this is just a piece of paper. That's a piece of paper on a piece of cardboard that I put a little stand behind. A couple of triangles will hold it up, no problem. Now, for your source, okay, your light source, I'm going to use my phone today because it's so bright. You know, it's really, really bright. So this is great, especially on a day when we're in the daytime here. This light source is really powerful. So, but you could use a flashlight. You could use an LED. You could use, I mean, just about anything that your minds could imagine you could use. Now, one thing you need though with a phone, for example, is a stand. So I'm going to show you a quick little way that you can make a stand pretty quickly. I'm going to give you two techniques today. One's out of popsicle sticks. So what I did is I just got two sticks, and then I made kind of like a little easel stand. So it's kind of like a little L there underneath, right? So here's my easel. And then I just get a couple of these clothespins, and I'm just going to hook them on as my legs. And there you go. There's my stand. All right, so now I can comfortably put my phone, and now I can just kind of manipulate it and move it around. And we'll see as we manipulate our light source, it is going to change all those kinds of things that Caro was talking about reflecting the light or breaking the light or having it bounce off of different things. So it's really quite amazing once you get it onto something. And sometimes you're going to want to just have it there for a while, because Craig's going to show you in a minute some ways that we can remix shadows and stuff like that. All right, so stand, really important. Another technique I used are these, I mean, we all have toilet paper clips, so I just sectioned them out, made a nice little slot for my iPhone, and then I can just slide it over, right? You get two, slide them in like that. And then again, I have a stand for my phone. You can do the same thing with an iPad, same thing with an Android devices, whatever you might have, or you could use your computer camera as well. That works great as well. I personally really like this easel thing I invented. I'm going to market this. I think it's going to be maybe $30 on eBay, maybe. We'll see. All right, now materials. All right, materials. So we have our source of light, we have a stand, we have it ready to go. And now what can we play with? Well, what can't you play with? I was using a lot of plasticine to make like little things, because I could remix the shadows of these, right? So if I put this on the table, and I'll just give you a quick demo here, and I get my light source on, right? You can already see as I move that light around what happens to the shadow, right? So it transforms it. And if you have that flat one, well, look, you can put it right up on a wall as well. And then you could do art on this, right? I could transform this. Craig's going to get into that in a minute. All right. So there's objects I could use. Another fun thing too, if you have, oops, my wall, don't fall down, wall. I have these snow globes. These are really fun because they're not completely translucent. They do have a little bit of, they're not completely transparent, I mean. So when you put the light on it, you can kind of see the sparkles. And then as I pull it back, you're not really going to see it much on mine, but you can expand the size of the shadow and by moving it. And oftentimes too, you can get the little characters inside to come out in that reflection. A couple of other things that I played around with are just putting some color inside some jars. This one actually is pretty cool. I started just by spinning it, right? So you take it, you spin it really fast, and then you get these like whirlpools in here, and then I can put my light on and then get to see them spinning, which is really fun. I don't know if you've probably done that in science class, where you make a what do they call those? Whirlpool inside a jar. So I just had some different colors that I was using. I kind of felt like some of this, it felt like the Northern Lights a little bit, you know? So as I move, and again, remember, the light that we have is not as strong as it would be if we were completely in the dark, but just little jars of food coloring and water works super well. Some other things you can use. Materials with texture. All right, so this is just some kind of foamy paper, some like tissue paper, I mean, and I cut out some slots in it so that I could create some reflection on my backdrop. Okay, so I made something with that. I also found some packaging materials like this thing, right, which has some great texture to it. So when I put it on the background, I can really start to get some pretty interesting textures and start to make some interesting art type things, you know, you can really get into it that way. And I also have some like packing, right? This bubble wrap stuff is really fun. I'm going to show you something with that in a minute. And then just products, household items, like a spoon, a pasta spoon. All right. So have a look at this, what it does. So if I put this flat on the ground, look at these spikes that start to come up. And again, I could remix this. I could play with this shadow. And again, just by moving it, I start to get all of these different kinds of shapes that start to form, right? Depending on where my light is. So a lot of these like household kitchen items, I have a couple of other ones here, like this sieve. It's really cool because it makes these really cool textures on the back. And then I could put some color in front of it if I wanted to, and then shine my light through it that way. So again, it's just tinkering. I'm playing with a whole bunch of different ideas. One last thing I'm going to show you is how to create kind of a bottle light. Okay, so I take a jar, okay, empty jar, and what I did is I cut out some color films. this is a binder divider. I was like, okay, I'm going to use it. So I just cut a piece out. I could then put it inside the cup, inside the jar, I mean. Okay, so now it has a color film. And then I love these little LED lights. So now it's not that bright it's not going to show up too much in here just because of how much light we have. But I could put that in a jar, right? Package your light in a jar. And then I could put my light through this and get all kinds of different shapes and colors and stuff that are going to show up on my surface. All right, so pretty cool stuff that you can do. And all of this I pulled out of the recycling or I stole from my kitchen. So there's some ideas. Carol, send it back to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris, for sharing the materials. And also here were great examples of using shadow and light indoors with man-made light. However, Craig will also present some activities that are outside using natural light. And it's a great way to get your students or children outside. So both are great ways of doing it: indoors, outdoors, with man-made light or with natural sunlight. And in terms of curricular connections, there are tons, and in all subject areas really. Obviously, we have science and technology, so the technological design process, the material world, earth and space, light and shadow. We could also talk about visual arts. So there's so much creation going on. You could even build shadow theaters, shadow remixes. We're looking at stimulus for creation, the creative process, transforming gestures. For example, cutting, notching, putting together volumes, and also the different language and vocabulary. So value, texture, like Chris mentioned, patterns, spatial recognition. I also wanted to make some quick links with history, social sciences. You could address the history of light. You could look at the sundial. For math, you could look at patterns, sizing, lengths, and you could even get into some storytelling with English language arts, or even a French second language or English second language. So you could connect this theme of light and shadows with really all subject areas. So let's go see what Craig has in store for us. I know he planned out a few nice activities and he wanted to share some pictures of shadows that he went on a shadow hunting activity.
All right, so we'll remix a little bit. I'll draw for you guys. So let's just switch my camera. I'll go over onto my dock cam over here. So I have a big bright light behind me, but just to give you a sense, I'm using a headlamp, which is a really bright LED, some shop clamps kind of thing. And then I'll just use some fruits and vegetables like you can see there. So let's do a remix of shadows. So here's my lime. I'm going to place it over here. And I'm just going to trace the shadow of this. There you go. A little bit rough tracing, but so there's my lime outline. And then I could just turn this into something like that, a little bit of a bird. And then here's my celery piece that's seen better days, but this will become a branch. I'll just get that out of the way. Oh, I think my Sharpie is drying up. Whoa, I got some shaky hands here, but shaky's probably better. And anyway, you see some leaves appearing on that tree. We'll put a branch up the middle. And so on. So the remix idea is I'm taking household things or things that I found, like a vegetable, and then I'm turning it into a nature scene kind of thing. And let's get our garlic in here too. Capo had an idea to turn this into a mole or something like that, but I think I'm going to do my little rabbit here. Like that. Some ears. Hard to see what I'm drawing here. Over there. Oh boy, that was shaky, but you get the idea. You can see the outline there. We'll put an eye on that. Maybe we have to fix up those ears a little bit and maybe put a foot on there. So just to give you an idea, that's a quick rough sketch, but then you can do some really fun stuff also. So Chris had mentioned household items. So this is kind of a fun one. These two, some strainers or whisks, I think they're called. So this could become a fun branch too. And the detail is pretty good there. You can see points I could follow all around. And maybe this could have been a sun had I used the circular one, but you get the idea. We'll bring that down. There you go. That kind of thing. So it looks like a nature piece. We remixed things we have in the house and turned it into something pretty cool. And then you can add color to it. So that's the drawing piece, the hand drawing. Let me share my screen. I'll bring back my face camera and I'll share a screen with you just to show you the digital part of what could be done. So hopefully you can see that in front of you. So the shadow hunting, when you get outdoors, is a really cool thing to do. These are some things I just found on my front porch without going too far. And the fun about hunting is it's a little bit contagious. Once I got out there, I couldn't stay just on my porch. I found these things, but I ended up at the park behind the house. And then that park had some cool stuff, but it reminded me of cooler stuff up the street. So I ended up outside for like a half hour, 45 minutes hunting. And there's no shortage of shadows out there. You can find them all over the place. So you can see some broom handles and some bottles on a railing, a hydro post on the side there. And here's some indoor hunting that I did. And these were all plants pretty much. And they become pretty scary depending on how you look at them. There's some neat stuff. I see the grate to the fireplace there, those curly things on the side. So those are some indoor possibilities. And you could even use your own body, right? So outside you make shapes yourself. And then I ended up using a drawing tool to make my giant stick man over there. But it's fun to make your own shadows that way outside when you're hunting. Here's another creation piece. What's neat to notice is the shadow is fun. You can outline that if you're drawing, but you could see the light, the prism on the right-hand side, you could see a star that's appeared based on the light, not on the shadow. So you could use the opposite of the shadow actually and outline that. You can get some really neat shapes. And had I placed this properly, I could actually get a rainbow showing up. Here's some more shadow creating. And you could see my garlics back in that one, and then avocado. So you place it in different positions, and it's fun to see what it casts on the wall, and it becomes new images. You get ideas on what it could become based on what appears in front of you on the wall. So that's another example of creating some shadows. And this is a remixing digital method. So I used a markup photo app, and there's links for that in our presentation. But so you can see the shadow from the railing on my front porch. I saw that as prison-like. And so I just quickly sketched a stick man kind of thing in the drawing app. And then I used the eraser tool, and just with my finger on the iPad, I was just dragging down the rails where you could see to give the perception or the look that this person was actually behind bars. So it was a quick job, but it's kind of a neat thing. You could show depth and hide things behind layers in a pretty simple way on the iPad. And this is taking it a little bit further, that same app using color. So I did a bit of a sculpture with the banana and a Post-it note there in the mason jar. It got a really nice shadow, took a picture, and you can be clever in how you take your picture. I probably should have just caught the shadow in the photo, but in my case, I actually had the banana and the other things stuck. So I kind of colored over it to hide it. And then with some cropping strategies, you can see on the right-hand side, the big picture, what it could look like. So my little dolphin turned up. Just to show you that app, and my iPad wasn't cooperating, so I'll just walk you through with some pictures, but that's the markup photo app. It's for the iOS, it's for the iPad. There are tons of other markup apps available for Android and different tablets and for your phone and so on, but just to give you a sense of how simple this thing is, there's the markup photo app. The options appear when I open it up, and by default, it's that Mona Lisa face. What I ended up doing is choosing the middle, selecting photo, and the photo goes to my photo roll on my iPad. And so you can see up top there, some of the photos of the shadows I had were there. I selected my shadow, and then already this started to look like an Inuksha kind of thing. So I can imagine I can draw something on that. And just quickly, you have pretty basic drawing features. You have a paintbrush, or you could choose a marker, and you can choose different thicknesses and so on. You can see that on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, you have colors, a few colors to choose from, to choose the color of your pen. Pretty straightforward. And the last bit, where that red circle is the sharing piece. So you can save this to your photo roll, or you can send it to yourself digitally. And in my case, I was saying the iPad was bugging on me, so I actually used a bit of a hack. I just took a screen capture. So if you press the home button and the sleep wake button simultaneously, you get a nice little screen capture, and then it goes into your photo roll to have. So that's a quick walkthrough of the digital pieces. This last one is Google Drawing, which just is a little higher level of playing with a drawing tool. You have a blank canvas, and you can get into layering almost like Photoshop. So what I did here is I used my railing again to represent the prison, and it's kind of my political commentary on what the past year has been. There's 2020 behind bars. That's what it's felt like. So that was the idea. I took a clip art of a person in an orange jumpsuit, stuck it on there, drew the gray bars over the existing shadow, and then with the arrange situation, I was able to move to front, move to back, different things to create that. So we can explore this more in greater detail, and hopefully you'll join us next week, and we'll do more of a hands-on session for more lights and shadows, and we could explore digital features together next week. Back to Caro.
Those are beautiful pictures, Craig, and I love the ideas of activities. Thank you, by the way, for mentioning celery, because I just remembered I have a celery that's probably getting quite floppy in my fridge. And also, it was a great idea when we saw Craig's shadow. You could do that with your students to see how a student's shadow changes throughout the day and according to the position of the sun. And maybe they could take some measurements and create a math activity out of it. So there's tons of things you could do with light and shadows. Also, the way of integrating digital tools, even it could be good for our youngest learners too. They could go on a scavenger hunt, for example, take some pictures on iPads and come back to the class and remix them. So these activities are awesome for the youngest learners, the older ones, and also for grown-ups. I just wanted to come back quickly to the thread of our live stream, tinkering. So as an adult, an educator, a teacher, a parent, it's important to let the children tinker and be creative. I know it could be tempting sometimes to want to place the light for them or to point out some observations. However, let them learn, let them try through a trial and error, in fact, and let them make the connections. And at the end of this live stream in a few minutes, we'll also provide you with some guiding questions that you could ask your students or children. So last but not least, let's go back to Chris, who prepared a fun animation using light and shadow.
Great. All right, so you're right onto my document camera here, guys. So here's just the basic setup, right? So what I'm going to show you, one last thing, is how we can use shadows to animate things. Okay, so a 2-picture animation. All right, so there's my setup. I have my light source, which is my phone, on my stand, and then I have this pasta fork. All right, so I'm going to try to put it as close as I can to the light source, and I can always manipulate that. Okay, so I'm going to move it up a little bit higher here so that you can see the shadow. I'll go and I'm going to turn my camera on. All right, and right away I start to get some pretty cool things. And again, if I want to move my objects around so that I get it so that I'm happy with it, boom, no problem, just move it around. Okay, now the idea is that I take a picture of this and then I change it. Okay, so in this case, this reminds me kind of some hair or something, like somebody that's really afraid. So I'm going to draw some eyes. Okay, so there's some eyes. So when I turn my camera off, it kind of creates this kind of cool nothing to something, right? So with the shadow, it helps us figure out what this drawing is, even though it's very poorly done, right? So again, it's just these really simple little ideas, and your kids will love this. It brings them down these roads where they get to just kind of tinker and play. I'm going to show you the final result. So what I did at the end of this is I just brought it into something called GIF Maker. You upload your 2 pictures, and then it will spit out something pretty cool. I'll dump it in the chat so you guys can have, actually, you're not going to be able to see chat because it's useless. Let me just show you on my screen because I have it here, and you can get an idea of what it looks like. Okay, so, oh, not like that one. Sorry, I already have it open too. So this is kind of what the results are, right? So I start with nothing, shadow. I put the eyes on, and then I can, right? So it's actually 3 pictures on this one, but you can see it kind of starts to create some really cool things. I encourage you guys to come and play with us next Friday. We're going to go from 2:30 to 3:30. You have to register. The link will be in all the information underneath this live cast. So we really encourage you to come in. And if you can't find the registration there, go on the Learn website, go on Facebook. All of our social media stuff will have the registration. And we love it too if you're a teacher and you have some kids that want to come and do it with us, even better. And you can see the materials you need are very, very basic. So thanks for joining us today and looking at this. And I'm going to send it back to Caro. And I hope to see you guys all next Friday where we play as a community together.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. I like this stop motion GIF activity. It's kind of a continuity to our last live stream, which was actually on stop motion. So that's really cool. And finally, one of the ways that we connect curriculum to what our students are doing is through reflective questioning and discussion. So you don't have to wait till the end of an activity to do this. You can ask these questions throughout the activity, and you could also use them as a whole group debrief. So some questions that you might ask students for light and shadow are: which materials can you use to make the light shine through? Here we're looking at transparency, translucency, and materials that are opaque. How does the position of the light influence the shadow? How can you make the shadow look bigger, smaller? What happens as things get bigger, and what happens when things get smaller? So distortion, how are shadows sharper? That's it for us today. We're trying something new, like Chris and Craig mentioned. Next Friday, we're inviting you, March 26th. It's from 2 to 3 p.m., so 1 hour of tinkering. Join us with your kids, family members, or friends. So 1 hour, we're going to look at light and shadow together, and we're going to play for the hour. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel if you want to see our next live stream. So it's Learn Quebec YouTube channel for the upcoming live sessions. Remember, all the activity ideas that we mentioned today are on the blog, ocs.learnquebec.ca. Special shout out to our friends at the Exploratorium. They have amazing resources. For example, this infographic on light and shadow. You could find everything on their website. They have great activities. That's it. Thanks for joining today, and